I drop bombs on them. This is hip hop for justice.
People that we're supposed to trust racism and miscarriage of justice serve. Trayvon Martin, an unarmed black teenager. Sandra Bland. Death has provoked weeks of demonstrations.
2 years old, died later in hospital.
1. The December 2nd shooting of Mario Woods by 5 officers.
The 2014 death of Michael Brown and 32-year-old Philando Castile.
We must win in the name of justice. In the name of justice for Mario Woods. In the name of justice for all others who've been brutalized by police.
People who are ready and willing to fight for justice.
Hip-hop artists are our leaders today.
You're more than just a rapper. You are a teacher, you are an artist, and you are a leader.
Your voices, your words, your rhythms have attracted young people in all of the countries of the earth that allow your music and your lyrics to be played.
Peace. Welcome to the Hip Hop for Justice Radio podcast. I am Brother Miles alongside my partner and co-host S1W James Baum of the legendary Public Enemy, and the Queen of Hip Hop for Justice, my sister Half Pint, the legendary Son of Berserk featuring No Self-Control. Peace, y'all.
Peace, Brother Miles. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good, and I'm glad you were able to call in, Half Pint.
Absolutely.
Man, but before we get into the segments, and before we bring on our illustrious guest, Student Minister Christopher Muhammad, the San Francisco representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, why don't you tell us where you are right now?
I am in a classic hip-hop show, and when I tell you that I'm seeing real hip-hop, and it feels good to know that you're in a place where there's, people love hip-hop and it's the true essence of it, I'm enjoying myself, and this is what it's all about. When we say hip-hop for justice, we definitely are in a spot right now where you see hip-hop at its greatest. From the people that are here, the brothers and sisters that are here enjoying the show, to the brothers and sisters that are performing.
You tell us a little bit of that lineup. Who you got on deck out there?
We saw Sweet Tea. You have Slick Rick, who's performing now. Houdini performed. Nice and Smooth. We got Onyx, Big Daddy Kane, and Naughty by Nature, who's coming through. So, like I said, this is a classic hip-hop show. The last time I saw a show like this was when we performed with the Hip Hop God Store. So, I got to tell you, this is really something special. And I love going to shows where true hip-hop and its essence is there. And again, the people just watching them and seeing how they interact with the artists is a beautiful thing. And like I said, hip-hop, true hip-hop, and real hip-hop is in this spot tonight in Atlantic City.
Man, you got Slick Rick performing right now. I kind of want you to put your phone closer to the speaker so we can all get a dose of Slick Rick.
Yes, he's performing now. Yes, brother is performing now. And I tell you that, like I said, this is real hip-hop. So you hear everybody in the crowd just singing along with them. And again, when you have shows like this and you see the real essence of it, you can't beat it. I'm in heaven right now.
Man, I got you. We're gonna let you hold tight for a quick second and enjoy a little bit of that show. That's where Half Pint is. She's at a classic hip hop event in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and over this past weekend, had our brother James Baum. Brother James, who was at another major event, and he's going to get into that in just a second as we get into our segments. But let's go ahead and start with Half Pint, and just to give everybody a heads up, next week, God willing, because after the show, Half is actually, she's there enjoying the show, but she's actually on assignment, and she's getting with some of those artists. Some of those artists have already blessed us with presence on the platform. But we also got some other artists that we want to bring onto this platform. So she's there with dual duty. She's enjoying herself, but she's also plugging in and connecting to a lot of those legendary artists to plug them in to the hip hop.
Absolutely, we want to make this connection for hip hop for justice.
That's right. So Half Pint, let's jump right into your segment and let you knock that out so you can get back to the event. Everybody, please give your attention to our sister Half Pint as she gives us a peace of mind.
Peace, brothers and sisters. So tonight's homework and reading is The Art of Peace, Balance Over Conflict in Sun Tzu's Art of War, translated and adapted by Philip Dunn. And chapter 34 reads, if you do not know who you are, you will not relate successfully unless you are willing to become familiar with yourself, your peculiarities, characteristics, and eccentricity. You cannot begin work of self-awareness unless you spend time listening to your own ways. You will not maneuver well in your own territory or the territory of others. Peace, my brothers and sisters.
Half Pint, thank you so much. I know you're going to hang on the line as long as you can. We don't want to take you away from that event, enjoying the show and getting with our brothers and sisters. Please give everybody that you know has been a part of this platform that's performing tonight our love and greetings. And God willing, we'll hear back from you next week with a report on that classic hip-hop event. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, okay, brother. And I want to thank everybody for all the listeners. And again, this is a classic show, and I'm hoping to continue to bridge the gap with hip-hop adjusters and artists that we haven't come in contact with yet, so that we can get them on our platform and understand what the idea of hip-hop adjusters is about: activism and hip-hop, and they're both colliding together to preserve the hip-hop culture.
Absolutely. This is where art meets activism. Half Pint again, thank you so much. We're going to move quickly to our big brother James Baum to give us his segment, Louder Than a Bomb.
Peace, family. Once again, thank you. This is just a recap of the Women's March out there this weekend. You know, as 2017 Women's March started January 21st, 2017, myself and Pop Diesel of Public Enemy, we were on our sisters Linda, Tamika, and Carmen, and you know, it was a great and to be honest with you, it feels great standing up with somebody who believes in believe like you, but standing up for rights of women around the world and throughout this country. And the first day on Friday, they all participated with our native brothers and sisters of this country, and they came from Canada, they came from Alaska, they came from Seattle, Washington, they came from New York, they came from all over the country to support the Native Americans initiative that was going on, and then the violence against Native women. That's just, you know, some of our sisters are being missing from various areas of the country, and that was then, you know, they addressed that, and then they see them in solidarity. But then the biggest issue of the feminist movement, them coming in talking about, they think that the women of color should take a back seat to what's going on, and it's most of the time they don't have a choice of what they're doing in terms of themselves. I think, and what I saw, it was so beautiful. They stopped by. The march started from and there was the Independence of Pennsylvania Avenue, 13th and 14th from Pennsylvania. It went on around past the Donald Trump Hotel, and they stopped there for a few minutes. And you know, the women there, voiced their opinions about a lot of things of this administration, and it has a lot to do with them having the right over themselves, over their reproductive organs, as some of the women expressed so eloquently. So they had a lot to say. We was there in support of the sisters, and as you know, when people don't agree with what you're saying, they will try to kill you or try to hurt you in some form or fashion. But Tamika Mallory, she stood strong, and Linda Sokawi, she stood strong, and Carmen Perez, they stood very strong, and the saddest thing is you got some white women who are trying to oust them, and because of her strong stance with the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. Look, we all ain't gonna agree on everything, but you're not gonna tell me who I can talk to, who I should be able to say anything to. I don't think it's right for them to even ask. Nobody asks them in their community and let's be real about it, because I'm not. I don't try to eloquently say things, but I'm getting better at it. But I like to say things as real as I could possibly get. You don't have nobody coming to them, their comedians or any of them telling us how we should speak to our people or who we should support. This man, Representative Al Green, and I'm going to just call it like it is, a hatchet-head Negro. Somebody tell him concerning the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, what is it that he said that was incorrect? If he can just prove that Minister Farrakhan said some of the things that's being said of him, then he could prove it. But he's not shown any proof, as the Jewish community hasn't shown any proof of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's just the same thing with the march, the women on the march. You know, they're accusing Tamika of, siding with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as she should. He's her elder in this struggle. Who else out there can tell her anything about the struggle and him? Because most of our leaders and most of them are gone now. It's not that many out there any longer. So she has to sit with her elder. Who else is out there? So I'll leave it as that, and we'll get more as we have. And it's surprisingly, we're going to be having Tamika come on, her and Linda, at some point, hopefully next week, and we'll get into that later. Peace, family.
Brother James, thank you so much. Yeah, tonight's live podcast is really dedicated to setting the record straight. It's dedicated to dealing with the constructed climate, the atmosphere that's being whipped up. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the ultimate aim of this world is to kill the messenger of God. So when you look at everything happening, when you look at the landscape of the world right now, when you look at the scandals coming up, when you look at the attack on black leadership, preachers, entertainers, when you look at all of this, there's what you see, but then there's a whole lot happening behind the scenes that you don't see. So that's the purpose of tonight's show, is to set the record straight on all of this. Now, that's not the job for me to do. That's not the job. I mean, it is our job, Brother James and Half Pint. It is our job, and we have to stay our position. But we have somebody with us tonight that can go to the root of all of this and help us to see things better. And so we want to bring on our very special guest, big brother, family member, who was here at the very beginning of this platform, Hip Hop for Justice. He has been my student minister, mentor, big brother, and father figure for 28 years. This is my 29th year in the Nation of Islam. So I'm honored to bring back to the Hip Hop for Justice Radio podcast, student minister Christopher Muhammad. Brother Minister, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Brother Miles and Brother James and Sister Half Pint. Thank you for having me on your show.
Brother Minister, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to jump right into setting the record straight in the title of Fear of a Black Planet. So why did you feel, and why do you feel it's so necessary to set the record straight when it comes to all of these black leaders that are coming out attacking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? You got the media in full blast attacking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You have Jewish leaders coming out attacking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and you have those that are standing with him, Tamika Mallory's and others that have either historically stood by him or are presently standing by him, coming under a blistering attack. And then you have another Lifetime documentary, Surviving R. Kelly. I think Lifetime was the same cable network put out the Betty and Coretta movie that tried their best to smear the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So we're in this atmosphere and in this climate where the enemy has declared all-out war. And so we wanted to talk about what's at the root of all of this. And I think you're best qualified to deal with that. So why don't we jump right into that?
Thank you for your introduction, and certainly thank the brothers and sisters that are on this podcast call, because as you rightly stated, Brother Miles, we are at war. And when we understand that the war that we're in has been a declared war on us by the most powerful forces in the annals of human history of the last 6,000 years, where the rule of white supremacy has reached its zenith, and yet those that are in power recognize that their time is up. The Bible says it like this, that the devil has come down with great wrath, for he knows he has but a short time. The enemy always knows the time better than the masses of the oppressed. And they're always scanning among the oppressed, especially when they know the time, for anyone that could guide the oppressed into what must be done according to the time. So before I go any further, every significant event in a servant of God's life should always begin with the aid, guidance, and protection of Almighty God. So I say to you and your audience, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger, and I greet you all from the heart with the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
That means peace be unto you, brothers and sisters. The thought, Brother Miles, that we're at war, a declared war, and the people that the war has been declared on don't even realize that there is a war that's been declared on them. And the enemy has been so skillful at deception and ruling by way of deception that he can make you believe that your enemy is in fact your friend, and even make you believe that your friend and brother and family is your enemy. Now, the enemy understands, and keep this in mind, as we are in now the 400th year of our sojourn in America according to the calendar of white people. Now, we know the first slave was brought to America in the year 1555. Ironically enough, on a ship named Jesus of Lubeck, captained by a English trader named Sir John Hawkins. But in school, this is common, this is knowledge that's secret. In school, most of us were taught that the first slave was brought to America in the year 1619. Well, why didn't they say or tell the truth of what's known in secret, that the first slave was brought here in the year 1555 on a ship named Jesus? And that's very, very significant, because nobody loves Jesus more than black people.
Right.
We were taught Jesus, and we were taught about him as a ruse. R-U-S-E. It was a trick. And it was designed and calculated by the slave master to make us more docile slaves and accept our slavery and suffering at the hands of our oppressor, and then look to release from the oppressor's heavy-handed slave system by waiting until we died to meet God in heaven. By being obedient to our masters on earth, we would then get favor from God in heaven. And this was taught to us from birth. Once they learned that they could make us slaves and teach us some parts of the Bible in order to aid them in controlling their slaves. But what they never told us was, how did you take a free, proud, independent black man and woman from Africa and turn them into homeborn slaves? Since most of our fathers, none of them knew about Christianity coming from West Africa, they were either involved in traditional African religion or they were touched by Islam. So we did not know how we became homeborn slaves. And the white man understood that the system of making a slave was not to be known, because then we would understand how what they set in place was able to self-generate and self-perpetuate for over 310 years of what we call chattel slavery. Now, it's out of this system that took 64 years of hidden history from 1555 to 1619 are the 64 hidden years known by wise, skillful, slave-making white people who never wanted this to be known in a way where the slave and the common people would understand the system that was employed in the United States of America. And this is why the white people had game shows called the $64,000 question.
Right.
Which this is like a question that has a very great prize if you can answer it. And in those days, you would get $64,000 if you could answer that question at the top of the pyramid. Because that was the missing capstone. That if you can answer this question, you actually win $64,000. Why 64? As the Honorable Minister Farrakhan said, it's because they knew that the 64 hidden years would be a great mystery, because nobody looking at our condition can see black people as strong as we are, as well built and tough as we are, and certainly any field that we get in, we excel in it. If it's music, if it's sports, if it's boxing, if it's any field, if we're left alone, we automatically rise to the top in that field. So they want to know, how did this people who's so powerful become so dead mentally, morally, spiritually? But they never knew the hidden history. And so when they told us 1619, it was a trick. But the jig is up now, because God is going to use their calendar. And since the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan came to his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, not coincidentally, not by happenstance, but he came to the Nation of Islam in the year 1955, which was a pivotal year in the history of black people. That's when Mother Rosa Parks decided to not stand in the back of the bus, but sit in the front of the bus, which sparked the civil rights movement. It's other things that happened that year when the civil rights movement began to organize and all of the efforts in that area. But the most important event happened in 1955 when a little black man who was a singer and dancer of entertainer sat in the mosque in Chicago at Savior's Day 1955, and in that audience heard for the first time the man that would become his leader, teacher, guide, and father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it was there at that day that the most significant event in our history took place, second only to the significance of the meeting between the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his master, Master Fard Muhammad, in 1931. So when that meeting took place in the 400th year, it set off a chain reaction. And now, as the scriptures in the book of Genesis told through Abraham from God, know of a surety, Abram, that your seed will be a stranger in a land not theirs, and they will serve them and be afflicted by them for 400 years. After that time, I will come. This is God talking. And judge that nation and deliver the people of God to a land of their own. Now, the Jews, the white power elite Jews, or so-called Jews according to the Bible, the synagogue of Satan according to the Bible. These people have confirmed that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is that leader that they feared would rise in the last day. And they now have recognized him as the last man standing. It's the same plan that the government of the United States has, what is called COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program of the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover. And it's interesting that the FBI came into existence the same year as the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith. Why is that significant? Because their aims and objectives are one in the same. What were those aims and objectives? In the 1960s, taxpayers' money were used to codify a program that was designed, listen to this language, listeners, it was designed to prevent the rise of a Messiah. And that's the government's language. So don't tell me you don't believe in spiritual terms or religious terms. J. Edgar Hoover used a religious term, a spiritual term, to describe a black leader that would rise up from among us, who would unify and electrify the masses of black people into or moving toward total and complete liberation. That was the fear of a black planet right there. So I want to thank Public Enemy, the revolutionary hip-hop, legendary hip-hop group that put truth to a beat and electrified a generation of youth. They came out with an album called Fear of a Black Planet. And that's our subject, because these bold young brothers took the words and teachings of all of our great ones, up to and including the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and put it in a beat and put it to words and rhythm that caught and captured the imagination of our people. But what were they really saying? What was Chuck? What was Flavor? What was James? What was Griff? What were they really saying? Terminator X. They were saying that our enemies feared the day when black people would come to power and take their rightful place as the fathers and mothers of civilization. And white people, even though black people are the most magnanimous, most generous, most inclusive people on earth, the fear of white people is that we would remember their evils done against us. And should war break out, they feared that we would join on to their enemies and come against them. So the fear of the black planet grows out of the fear of a black Messiah rising up from the suffering of black people who would speak to our need and organize us, because it was the denial objective of the United States government that black people never, ever be allowed to organize. And if you notice, the enemy knows. See, remember the great cry of the satanic forces during Jesus' time. Listen to their cry. Why are you persecuting me before time? So God is not going to let you charge him with being unjust. No, when God sends down a decree of judgment, he's already factored in all of your efforts to discredit and disrupt and deny the judgment. And one of the great tricks of the enemy is saying, you're persecuting me before time. So God is going to use your calendar. Since you said it was 1619, then the 400th year comes up in 2019. And look, you're no better than your fathers. Your fathers murdered the prophets, falsely accused the men of God, tried to imprison the messengers of God, up to and including deicide, which is the killing of God himself, because the Christians believe that Jesus was Lord, God incarnate, God in person, but it was members of the power elite Jewish community of Jesus' day who determined that Jesus must die. And they got together a group of them called the Sanhedrin under the leadership of a man named Caiaphas. And they met in secret, a clandestine meeting, and determined at that point that one man should die so that we don't lose our place and our control and our power. So it's better that one man just be killed. This has reference to them, but it also has reference to the silence among black leadership. Who knows Minister Farrakhan? Who knows, has sat down at his table and broke bread with him and eaten food at his dinner table, who Minister Farrakhan has comforted and helped and guided and shown love to. Some of these people have gone broke, and Minister Farrakhan has helped them financially. In fact, some of these leaders wouldn't be alive were it not for Minister Farrakhan. Think about that. Some of these hip-hop artists and some of these entertainers have become OGs. You live to see grandchildren, brothers and sisters. But if the minister didn't step in and stop the killing and stop beefs and settle beefs among warring factions in the hood, Crips and Bloods, and East Coast versus West Coast, some of you would have been dead in the 80s. Be very clear. Some of you would have been killed in the 90s. But because of Minister Farrakhan's loving intervention in your life and in the life of others, you're now old enough to see your grandchildren. What do you owe a man that helped you? Brother James Baum said in the last conference call or the podcast that I was on, he bore witness, and he said during the time we were singing and performing around the world, that when we started becoming more popular, the enemy came against us and threatened us and put bombs under our stage and threatened to blow airplanes out the sky and tried to ruin us. But he said we always had direct access to Minister Farrakhan, who guided us and navigated us through that dangerous period. And we're alive now, partly and mainly because of Minister Farrakhan's guidance and love. Well, that's serious. But they're not the only ones that can bear witness. Some of these brothers and sisters, when the enemy wants to pull you away from Minister Farrakhan, he'll offer you TV shows. He'll offer you contracts. He'll offer you television programs. He'll offer you all kinds of things, but it's designed to pull you out of the sphere of influence of Minister Farrakhan. So some of us have gone on to live lovely, quiet, delicious, privileged life, but you got it because Minister Farrakhan offered you his wisdom, guidance, and counsel, and even the FOI. When I was a young FOI, I was dispatched to secure this brother or that brother, or a team of us came to secure you at the concert or to secure your hotel room at a time of great danger. So now that a man has helped you preserve your life, what do you owe him now? Should he have to speak for himself and defend himself? I should think not. Since all of us benefited from him, it's not his trial. Quite frankly, it's our trial. So these black leaders, black entertainers, black writers, black actors, black politicians, if you notice the enemy, they don't want to be silent. Many of them would come forth and say, wait a minute, Minister Farrakhan's a good man. But they've been scared straight. They've been frightened. The enemy has gone on a campaign. You either apologize or we'll ruin you. This is gangster action, where they've told black entertainers, look at my little brother, young brother, Mark Lamont Hill, in his late 30s, just a young man, but scholarly and brilliant. He has an opinion, he has thoughts, he has scholarship and study, but they're going to make him, he can't even comment on the Palestinian oppression and take a position of support of the Palestinians. These people tried to ruin him. These are thought police, man, where they are telling a brother, you can't even have an opinion, and fired him from CNN and threatened his job at Temple University. Then you had poor LeBron James. My little brother's a warrior. He's strong. And the man just listened to a rap song where it said, you know, I got me some Jewish money. And they made him apologize. You know LeBron didn't want to apologize. He's a man. But his advisors told him, look, if you don't, they're going to ruin you. You lose your contract. You lose this. You lose that. So my brother offered an apology, but you know in his heart of hearts, then the little rapper that wrote the song and performed the song, he had to apologize for talking about Jewish money, as if Jews don't have money. That's a damn lie. You're not poor. Why would they have to apologize? Man, if you're in hip-hop, what other money you got for Jewish money? Ain't no other money. You don't make sense. So again, you just need to allow the Nation of Islam to defend Black America, so we know how to defend you. We know the root of your enemies, and we know the root of the wisdom of God and the guidance coming to us from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So the black politicians who have all benefited, you would not have had a black president, brothers and sisters, were it not for Minister Farrakhan. Let's be clear. President Barack Obama only happened because the minister took the low. Knowing Barack Obama lived right around the corner from him, he could have said, well, wait a minute, brother, you know me. He didn't say anything. He took the abuse because he wanted Black America to have their dream, even though the dream became a nightmare. He knew that there was no solution in politics, but he loves black people. So he gave black people what they thought they wanted. So Barack Obama denounced, renounced, or whatever the language white folks use to make black people capitulate. And it was Hillary Clinton that put it on the table, and black people let that go, forgot that she tried to derail the campaign of the first black president, but you gave Hillary a pass and got a damn nerve to condemn Minister Farrakhan. Representative Al Green, I met that brother. Guess where I met him? I met him at the dinner table of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. How about that? In 2004, I was in Houston when the minister spoke at the Texas Southern University and the Indaba of the Reparations Movement Conference. I was blessed to be there and invited to dinner. And Representative Al Green was at the table trying to become a congressman, trying to ride the coattails of support for Minister Farrakhan. And the minister guided him so beautifully, and the minister, our minister there, Regional Minister Abdul Halim Muhammad, and the believers there in Houston helped Representative Al Green become elected. That's how he became a congressman. So, you know, I know he has affinity for the minister, but who pressed him? Who pushed him? Who forced him? And of course, his own weakness to capitulate and take the fact that he wanted to offend the nation and the minister rather than offend those forces that have the power to ruin you. Same with Barbara Lee. These people know Minister Farrakhan. They know he's a good man. Barbara Lee been to the mosque. She knows the Muslims. We work with Barbara Lee. Every time I see Barbara Lee, she give me the greeting. Assalamu alaikum, brother minister. So it ain't that these people don't know better. It's that these gangsters, you know, have put the pressure and have told black people in leadership and others of goodwill, you either denounce Farrakhan or we will destroy you, ruin you. See? And so, you know, we've now got to come together and put protection around our own. Look at the little sister, the great little warrior, Tamika Mallory. You can see her getting stronger now because she loves the minister. She knows him. She's counseled with him. She knows he's a good man and has represented good in her life and in the life of black people generationally. And as there were 64 hidden years of the destruction of the black man, Minister Farrakhan has been in this work now 64 years, and by God's grace, the sleeping giant is awakening because of his work, his commitment, his generational strength on behalf of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is now awakened black people to a level of consciousness. It's unfortunate that the old guard Negro leadership probably has to be removed because they're too scared of a black planet. But these young warriors, they're the generation born to produce the black planet. And look, if it's a black planet, it's an Asian planet. It's a Latino planet. It's a Central and South American planet. It's a white planet. But you're not going to be able to bring that old mind of white supremacy and the lie of white supremacy. You're going to have to take your place with the human family because it ain't white, it ain't light, it's right that will get you into the hereafter. So don't fear a black planet. Embrace a black planet because we're your parents. And we will do right by you according to the will of God and according to wanting for your brother and sister what you want for yourself. Anyone that interacts with the Nation of Islam knows our good work. Anyone that's hired a member of the Nation of Islam to work for your company, you know we're the best workers. We show up on time. We don't lie, cheat, or steal. Anyone that knows us knows that we mean peace and goodwill in the community. I've seen Minister Farrakhan interact with black, white, gay, straight. He can be in the presence of anybody. He don't have no phobias. This is a loving man. This is a gracious man. This is a magnanimous man. This is a man who can come in his presence and feel his warmth and love. And what I'm suggesting to us is that the enemy knows Minister Farrakhan is none of what they say, but the enemy is using these labels. They never explain what anti-Semitism is. They never define hate. These are just terms that they come with that are nebulous in nature, that you can never define, and the minute you try to clear the record, they smear you with this trash, hoping to ruin your reputation and actually bring you to your knees. But Minister Farrakhan and those who are with him have outlasted you. And now you're at your wit's end because you don't know how to deal with a free black man that doesn't need you for nothing and has his own base of support with the people, but it also has its root in the backing of God and his Christ to defend him, protect him, and guide him. And now you're pulling your hair out because everything you tried, every dirty trick has failed. But you didn't stop you from going back to the drawing board like that cartoon, The Road Runner. Every time the coyote had a scheme to kill the road runner, the scheme would backfire and catch him. But it didn't stop him from scheming. So keep on scheming. Keep on plotting. All you're doing is raising the consciousness of the real black man and woman in the street who knows the Nation of Islam. We're their cousins. We're their nephews. We're their sons and daughters. They know us. And so when you talk against our leader who cleaned us up and made us respectable, you are literally awakening a sleeping giant. That's the unintended consequence of arrogance and hubris and false pride. When you're so powerful, you begin to believe your own hype. And then you realize that there's consequences that you didn't intend because your arrogance blinded you. You got to be very careful how you handle Minister Farrakhan. As one police captain told his lieutenants in Detroit when they arrested God, Mustafa Muhammad, that captain, that wise, intelligent captain said, look, be very careful how you handle this man because he is a capsule of the highest explosives. And I say that to you today. You be very wise to be very careful how you handle the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You seem to be trying to egg on President Trump to do what Pontius Pilate was encouraged to do in Jesus' day. And I'm sure President Trump is weighing heavily what he's being pushed to do. But anyone that has observed and weighed the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan knows that this man's track record, his words, you have to strain to misconstrue his words, and worse, to misrepresent his words. Here's a man that taught in Detroit on the value of women, the beauty of women, the divinity of women, all women, regardless to race. He said women are sacred, and actually defended the white woman who was charging the Supreme Court nominee, Kavanaugh, with abuse. Minister Farrakhan on the world stage spoke about that woman and her pain. Now, how can you take a man who has a universal coat of many colors and love for humanity and then mic his message down to some one word or two words or one sentence and make that headlines? Who has that kind of power, brothers and sisters, that can make headlines on cue, where all major newspapers, TV programs, all speaking the same words from the same tune master and the same musical score? Who's writing the score? Who's the tune master? And who is the power that's forcing all of this to get in line with a narrative? You're dealing with Satan himself. But Satan has had to come out and unmask himself, which is showing everybody. Every time you make a LeBron James apologize, there's fans of LeBron James that are angry with you. Every time you attack a Colin Kaepernick, there's fans, a silent majority that's angry with you. Every time you force a Mark Lamont Hill to be fired, they're angry with you. Every time you unjustly try to make Tamika Mallory capitulate and bow, they get angry with you. You don't hear about them. They're just the poor masses in the street. But at a certain point, you have to consider that if you make the wrong move against the wrong man at the wrong time, you may be stirring up a sleeping giant of anger in the people, because they know that Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, he represents and they represent and we represent good. I know that was a long answer, but I'm in the spirit, and I'm sorry for being so long, my brother. But that's how I would answer your question.
No, yes, sir. No, thank you, Brother Minister, for the time and laying that good base for the rest of this. So when you talk about Mark Lamont Hill, you talk about Tamika Mallory and others, can you go into a little bit more? Because there's, as you said, their objective is to force you to apologize or they will ruin you. And recently, it's been all over social media, Kevin Hart and this issue with Kevin Hart and hosting the Oscars and bringing up something that he said in one of his comedy shows or something that he may have even tweeted 10 years ago. Likewise with Bill Cosby, reaching back 30 years. If you don't mind, can you talk about that a little more? And it appears that these people, the enemy, will go into your history, which means they're being a very good and real-time record. What you're saying, what you're doing. And if you don't mind, could you go a little bit deeper into that for us so that we can understand just who you're dealing with and to what length they will go to force you to bow to their will?
Brother, and that's an excellent question. I'll go as deep as I'm able. Of course, the deepest analysis would come from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but it's important to understand that the enemy is all about the control of his slaves. If you remember the movie Django, Samuel L. Jackson was the eyes and ears of the slave master, and he had a keen sense in watching the slaves who could potentially be a trouble source. So it was very important to keep eyes on any slave on the plantation who could be troublesome, who could be plotting a runaway, who could be organizing a revolt. This was the great fear during the time of Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey and Gabriel Prosser. See? So now let's take that principle. Fast forward. You got black people in entertainment in the 40s and 50s and 60s who had talent, skill. Think about Dorothy Dandridge. The great sister actress. Think about the Nicholas brothers, the great dance team. Think about Sammy Davis Jr., one of the greatest entertainers who ever lived. Think about Charlie Parker, Bird. I mean, just divine in the way he played music. Think about Thelonious Monk. Think about Duke Ellington. Think about Dinah Washington, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan. These great ones. They all had talent, but all of them died broke. Why? Because they had managers that didn't look like them, lied to them, cheated them, paid them off with drugs, paid them off with heroin, paid them off with Cadillacs. Go watch the movie Cadillac Records. That was the payment, Cadillac, that they would rent or lease Oh my God, you're broke, but you got a Cadillac. Meanwhile, they would sell millions of records, but they wouldn't know who was keeping the records, whether or not the record keeping was right. So if you're Charlie Parker, they tell you, well, we only sold 2,000 records, Charlie. And, well, I need some money. Well, here's $100 advance. Meanwhile, their brother runs the record store. Their brother and cousin runs the printing plant that prints the vinyl. So you don't know, on paper you see 2,000 records sold. But in reality, they sold 100,000. And they're making money. And the only way you can make money is that they book you in nightclubs that their other cousin owns. So you in the nightclub owned by the cousin, you got records being printed by the cousin or the other cousin, and you got the record stores being owned by your brother. So it's a racket. Then the radio stations, payola, you pay them to play your record. The record's popular, but they tell you only sold 2,000. When in fact you sold 2 million. But you wouldn't know, because sometimes they pay you in heroin. So many of our artists died broke. The only money they made when they stayed on the road 40 weeks out of 52, traveling everywhere on the Chitlin circuit, just trying to make money. Now, in the 1960s, when Muhammad Ali became a Muslim, Muhammad Ali broke that chain and had the nation behind him. And that's when black entertainers started making money, because Ali broke the bank or broke the chain of abuse financially, and it was Ali that caused Bill Cosby and Portier and all of these entertainers and athletes in the 60s and 70s began to make money because of what Ali was able to do in the way of freeing or breaking the grip that the syndicate and mobsters and other Jewish financiers and others had on these industries. And so Top Rank was formed with Herbert Muhammad and Bob Arum and others. Don King got his start in promotion. But now look at what we have. We have a generation of darn near billionaires.
Right.
Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Diddy, and all of these who are rich beyond our wildest imaginations. You know, Magic Johnson, this one, that one. If you could get them in a room to just agree on truth, you'd have almost $100 billion sitting in a room with black people. Don't you ever think that the enemy is comfortable with that. Because remember, in COINTELPRO, they said Martin Luther King could be a black messiah if he ever relinquished his nonviolent, peaceful approach and accepted black nationalism. Martin Luther King could become very dangerous. And when Martin Luther King met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that was, in fact, the great danger. Because the enemy said, oh, my God, if these two get together, the wisdom of Muhammad with the eloquence of Dr. King, it's all over. And they knew they couldn't move on Muhammad because he was too strong, so they made their move on Dr. King. Now, what am I saying? All of these entertainers, if you look around, many of them, over in the corner somewhere, is an advisor, is an accountant, is a manager, is an agent. And they're quietly guiding, but their eyes and ears are always watching to see what they're spending their money on, what they're donating to, what they're reading on their private airplane. Because the fear is that these brothers and sisters, they're shucking and jiving and playing the role and acting like it's all good, but quietly their souls are longing for something more. And they all know Minister Farrakhan. They all know have gotten his tapes, have gotten his videos. So that word of truth is ringing in their conscience. But they're making money now. But they have a longing to do more. So when they discovered President Obama's picture with Minister Farrakhan that they didn't know existed, in their mind, that was loss of control, Brother Miles, Brother James, Sister Half Pint, and your listeners. Oh, boy, you mean they had this meeting without our knowledge? See, the Holy Quran says Pharaoh was so angry when the magicians of Pharaoh, the black leadership and intelligentsia, start believing in Moses and Aaron. Listen to Pharaoh's word. Do you believe in them before I give you permission? See, these people have a mind that they're the slave master because they've been taught how to master the original man from the very beginning. So they have mastered us. They're always around us, listening, observing, making notes, making suggestions. So when Kevin Hart says something, the way he's speaking about gays and lesbians and children and parenting, they said, oh, this is a live one here, potentially. So let's crush him quick. Lest he, gets comfortable and gets closer to the real one that we fear, Minister Farrakhan. See, so you force him to, and the brother is saying, man, I don't have nothing to apologize for. Well, if you want to host the Academy Award, you better apologize. He said, well, forget it then. I'm not doing it. I'll apologize. But he really didn't want to do it.
Right.
But he is, heavy into that, very deep. And so he's being threatened. If you don't capitulate to this agenda we're pushing, then we will break you. And others are under that. Brother Miles, you mentioned some other names, so you can refresh my thought.
We're talking like Cosby. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so what happened was Bill Cosby. He played the role in the 60s and 70s and was very popular when I was a youngster. You would watch I Spy. Him and the white fella were both black and white team. This is what they were promoting in the 60s to bust up the growth of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the black nationalist movement. So they were starting to promote black and white together. Bill Cosby was one of the early stars. And in the 70s, he had a comic strip show on TV where Fat Albert and the Cosby kids, and you would watch all of that, and it was about his childhood and whatnot. So Bill Cosby was a darling. He was a comedian, very clean comedy. But in the 70s, cocaine and lifestyles were very loose, and that was part of Hollywood. You just did that. You did all kind of things in Hollywood in the 70s, And so then he comes out into the 80s and puts together a beautiful show, The Cosby Show, that gives black people another view of family life. Then he had spin-offs dealing with different world and whatnot, black college life. Okay, he's trying to do something positive. He has a doctor named Poussaint out of Harvard, who's a black scholar and psychologist, reviewing the script, making sure there's nothing in this that would be harmful to the consciousness or the sensibilities of young black people, because they're trying to do good in a safe kind of way. Then Cosby in his elder years starts speaking truth in his own way about black people, cleaning up and pulling our pants up and respecting ourselves. And he even said, I agree with Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, and started showing that he was moving in a direction in his later years where he would use the influence and his experience and his money. He was trying to purchase one of the networks, right, with cash, right. And so he became a what they call an existential threat Again, fear of a black planet.
Right.
And so all of a sudden now, he had a settlement of against an accusation where he settled, and the agreement was confirmed by the Attorney General and the District Attorney of Pennsylvania, and the woman was sent her way with some kind of compensation, and she agreed not to go forward. But then, all of a sudden, while Cosby is traveling among the black community, preaching a message of do for self and self-development and community development, all of a sudden, an obscure comedian, who we don't even know his name hardly, does a routine in a comedy club, and all of a sudden says Cosby is a rapist. Ha, ha, ha. And go into Google Cosby and rape. I'm serious. He's a rapist. What is he running around telling black people to clean up and do this and preaching to black people when he's a rapist? Well, it was in a nightclub. It's a comedy routine. But guess what? Somebody's filming it, allegedly, and it goes viral everywhere. Then all of a sudden, a judge gets wind of a comedy routine. And the resulting outrage, and reopens the settlement case and allows it to be tried, and reopened, and Cosby now is in prison. See, these are things that really on one level is really something when you understand the lengths that these people will go to ruin you. But their ultimate aim is to come after that messianic figure that represents the last hope of our people. And all of this is interrelated, and it's all about control, because they have the Democratic Party under their control and the Republican Party. And they have black politicians under their grip. They have black entertainers under their grip. They have black athletes under their grip. And with all the money we generate, if you notice, you can't get them in a room to talk about the community and how we can work in a collective manner to lift our people up. And behind that level of disunity are those enemies who fear the rise of a black planet, fear Colin Kaepernick's spirit will get among these young brother football players and they'll begin to stand up. They fear that LeBron can be brought into more consciousness and strength. They fear that coming out of the 60s, you had black athletes in consciousness and in unity, and they vowed never to let another Muhammad Ali rise up and challenge them, never to allow another Curt Flood, who is the brother who set up free agency in sports. It was a black man who said, I no longer wish to be a slave on the plantation, and challenged the system of baseball and press them and force them into free agency, where you can go to a team of your choice and sell your talent to the highest offer. It was a black man that did that, named Curt Flood, and he died broke. He died a broken man financially and otherwise. But those who benefited from him are now able to sign hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts. But it was that black man who set the precedent, because he was inspired by Muhammad Ali, the Nation of Islam, and the consciousness in the community. And he took a bold stand and paid for it. But let's remember and honor the memory of our brother Curt Flood, because many have benefited. And likewise, because we're in the period of the general resurrection in our 400th year, you can keep trying to plug these holes, Satan, but our people are growing angrier and angrier with you. And the more you attack Minister Farrakhan, because remember, Minister Farrakhan has taught generations. He's taught your grandparents. He's taught your great-grandparents. He's taught your parents. So he has crossed generations. Many of these black leaders heard the minister in college, were inspired by him like I was. And so you can't forget that good. If you try, your conscience won't let you. So I'm calling on all those who benefited. You know who you are. Stand up for your leader. Stand up for your father. Stand up for your big brother, the man that's meant more to you in many instances than your own parents. I say it's your time. Stand up for a man that stood up for you, and you will be blessed by God as he will be blessed. He'll get through this, and those of us with him, by God's grace, will get through it if it pleases him. But the question becomes, how will history remember you? So it's time now. I thank you for your question, brother.
Now, Brother Minister, if you don't mind, because Bill Cosby was talking ownership of a network. If you listen to Kevin Hart's interviews, he's talking about the establishment, Laugh Out Loud, and Heartbeat Productions, and all that he's trying to do, using his language to open the door for others to come in. So he's financing his own projects. And this is the talk among hip hop. The talk among hip hop is doing for self, being independent, not fully depending on record labels and these big corporations to finance and back your product, being dependent on them to market and promote you. Everybody, the language among the vast majority within hip hop is doing for yourself and going after the bag, going after the money. Is this why hip hop is under attack? Because there seems to be, and it's among the youth that are leading in hip hop, that now it's all about being independent, and is why there's this effort to keep hip hop dumb, to keep the lyrical content and the material that's coming out glorifying the worst part of our experience as a people. Is this why hip hop is under attack?
Well, it's one of the main reasons, but it's not the only reason. They don't mind you having a lot of independent money as long as you're ignorant of what to do with it. So if you got all this money and you're just buying a lot of cars, buying a lot of chains, but it's your money, well, you know, who's the jeweler selling you the chains? Who's the manufacturer of the cars and airplanes selling you the planes and cars? The real threat, I believe, from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through his prime minister, Louis Farrakhan, the fear is of a black planet. See, if these brothers, look, education can't hold us any longer, Brother Miles. Young people don't have no real interest in school. They don't think of go to college, build up a lot of debt with grants, come and go look for a job from the same white people and the same corporations that have exploited black people all over the world, and you now got to take your degree and beg them for a job. These young people are more hip than that. But here's the thing. They don't want the young rappers to use their influence to start teaching through the rap. That's why Public Enemy caught hell. That's what made Pac and all of these brothers and sisters somewhat of a threat. It was not what you're saying now, it's what you're saying when you meet with Farrakhan. It's what you're saying when you hear the tape or the show. Do you start putting that in the beat? And a man that can get 10 million hits in one day from a song, and people learn that they got a new record out, and they get 10 million hits on YouTube, 1 billion views. Don't you know a man like that with that kind of influence? They don't mind you having influence as long as they control you. And then they
Minister, Brother Minister, I apologize.
That's why they try to get you. What?
I apologize. I just got a text that you're sounding a little muffled.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to jump in.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what I'm saying is that the enemy knows the power of a lyric. Why do you think they made that brother who just mentioned having some Jewish money? Why do you think they made him apologize? Because they know the power of lyrics.
Right.
Why do you think they made Michael Jackson go back in the studio and change his lyrics? Kite me, Mike me, Jew me, sue me. Take that out. Why do you think they did that? Because they know the power of lyrics. But yet these culture vultures actually promote the crap that they promote to keep us in a degenerate state. But if these young warriors with their mind of the knowledge of self and or do for self, when they begin to say, man, I'm going to put the truth on the lyrics. I may have 8 songs of foolishness, but I'm going to put 3 songs that tell the truth. That's right. A threat. Because one rapper with enough following can change a generational and a whole group of thought in the community. And that's the fear of a black planet. It's the fear of black consciousness. It's the fear of black people awakening in what was called the general resurrection, a rise of our people from the dead. And there's only one man capable of generating that resurrection. And he's in the world. 85, this year he'll be 85 years young, or he is 85. And they know that this man is the father of the revolution from the one who taught him.
Right.
And they fear that people are beginning to listen to him. And let me say this last point on that beautiful question. When the Honorable, because I know I'm listening, when the Honorable Minister Farrakhan released that album, Let's Change the World, that was a shot heard around the world. Because Minister Farrakhan released an album so exquisite. It's the greatest album ever released. Listen to what I'm saying now. I'm a connoisseur of music.
Yeah, I guess you are.
I got 3,000 record albums in my home.
Right.
From the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, until they stopped making records. I have collector's item records. And I'm telling you, the album released by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the greatest musical collection and anthology and compositions of music and genres that have ever been released in history. Do you know Minister Farrakhan is a virtuoso violinist? I ain't just talking about somebody pick up the violin. I'm talking about a man that is practically at the highest level of that expression. He's literally on the level of people who just violin play for a living. The best in the world. And those who know classical music said, my God, we can't push the idea that this man is ugly, a hater, a wicked man, an anti-Semite, anti-this, anti-that, and a man plays that level of beauty on music. It's a contradiction. Then Minister Farrakhan he even has a score on his album that's from the theme from Schindler's List as an olive branch to the Jewish community. But some of these people, not all, some of them are so hateful. Minister Farrakhan put Snoop Dogg, or Snoop Lion, or Snoop, actually wrote the theme of the title of the album. Let's Change the World was a song written by Snoop. He got Rick Ross, Common. He's got Damian Marley, Bob Marley's son. He's got Denise Williams. I was there when she recorded the beautiful spiritual. You know, he looked beyond my faults to see my needs, or saw my needs. I mean, the beauty of the Stephanie Mills, even Lady Tamika Mallory, before she passed, put a song on the album called A Message to a Black Man because of her love of black people, and gave it to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and requested it be put on the album, and he put it on the album. There were white musicians, black musicians, Asian musicians, Jewish musicians, Christian musicians, musicians of all genres and all levels of expertise and beauty came together in a labor of love to produce the most exquisite album. Why am I telling you this? Because we started these conversations years ago talking about the Cultural Revolution.
Right.
And Minister Farrakhan himself started a cultural revolution when he released this album called Let's Change the World. And the enemy took that album, went and quietly listened to it, and found nothing on that album that they could criticize because it was so exquisitely produced and played and sang and chosen the beautiful lyrics and the songs and the concertos. All of that showed the enemy we must stop this man by any means necessary, because if we don't stop him now, the whole world will believe in him. And let me tell you something. When you are dealing in music, you're dealing with a universal language. People that can't even speak English can understand you. That's why Public Enemy can go all over the world, and they're more loved in Europe. James can bear witness, I'm sure. They're more loved in Asia.
Yes, sir.
In the isles of the Pacific, in other parts of the world, more than even they're loved in America. Because people all over the world felt Public Enemy and feel Public Enemy. And they don't even fully know all of what they're saying, but they know they feel them. That's the power of music. So when Minister Farrakhan put that music out, look at what Charlie Parker said. He said, music speaks louder than words. And it's true. So the minister was reaching into whole countries. If you like reggae, there's something there for you. If you like classical, there's something there for you. If you like hip-hop, if you like jazz, if you like R&B, there's something in it for you. And that was the universal language that the enemy was so angry at, because he saw artists that he thought was under their control, that they found out was helping the minister produce this album. Even their own Philharmonic musicians and masters came to help the minister. And I've been in his presence when he's been with them, and they have felt his love and spirit. So the enemy has a narrative, Brother Miles. And so hip-hop is under threat because of hip-hop's natural connection and natural alliance with the Nation of Islam and Minister Farrakhan. And if you get Snoop and Common and Rick Ross and this one and that one to begin to come closer to their brother and their family, you'll find that our people can come up and rise up overnight, and that's the fear of the black planet.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brother Minister. I'm going to bring Half Pint signed off because she's actually at an event with many classic artists. So she signed off early. So it's myself and Brother James as far as hosting. We're going to bring Big Brother James of the legendary Public Enemy in to ask a question or add some commentary. Brother James.
Yes, sir, Brother Minister. I thank you for that. That was beautiful, because Well, most of the people got to know that people around the world speak English as a second language. It's only a few places that they don't speak it, but they're forced to speak it as a second language because they teach it in the schools. But a lot of people, like in Brazil, where English is not spoken as much, but they know the words of the lyrics. They say them. But we connect with the indigenous people down in Chile and indigenous people in Argentina. You don't see them like in the cities, but when you go out to the country, you see them. And, you know, the larger community and the larger culture sometimes bottle the indigenous people up where they don't even speak their language no more. But connecting with the indigenous people in New Zealand, in Australia, and Tasmania, all of these places on the earth, even in Japan, where you see Japanese just as dark as us out in the country. Same thing in China. But connecting the struggle with those people, even young white people in Eastern Europe and in Europe, especially Russia. Hip-hop in Russia is just as more popular than it is in Brooklyn, New York. So, yes, connecting with them is true. My question is why do you think the Jewish community have that type of feeling that they can tell us how we should think and feel? What makes them think like that? What makes them that they can tell us how we should think or do anything they say do?
You broke up a little bit, Brother James.
Brother James, go ahead and ask that question one more time.
I think I got the question. I broke up, or he's in a bad area. But he's asking, apparently, why do you think the members of the Jewish community feel that they need to have this kind of control over black people?
Right.
Is that what you recall as what he was saying?
Yeah, that's the gist of it. Yeah, that's the gist of it, you know, dictating
keep in mind, let's go as far as we can with this for the limited time that we have. First of all, there's something that's real called white supremacy. Start there. The idea that I am better because I'm white. The people that you're talking about called Jews, the ones that oppose us, these are white people. Whether they're white Christian, white Jew, white agnostic, white, whatever they may call themselves, there's the idea that they are better because they're white. How do black Jews in Israel live? Are they oppressed? So it's not a Jewish issue in the sense of religion, except you're dealing with starting from the root of white supremacy. Now, they were the architects of the slave trade. Never forget that the slave trade had an architect going back to the 64 hidden years. Who financed the European coming out of Europe trying to find a new route to the east or India by going west? Who financed Columbus? Who financed those slave trading operations? You got to go to the root. And members of the Jewish community were the architects of the slave trade. It doesn't mean there weren't white Christians involved, but the architect and the designer of it was, in a documented way, members of the Jewish community, period. Now, let's go a step further. A fundamental tenet of belief is that among them is that they are the chosen people of God. Well, I'm so sorry, but the chosen people of God refer to a people who are in a strange land, among strange people, serving and being afflicted for 400 years. Stripped of everything: name, language, culture, God, religion, pathways, morals, values. That is not applicable to the Jews. They have their names. They have their language. They have their culture. They have their values, norms, folkways, and mores that they've been able to keep intact wherever they go in the world. That has specific reference to black people in America, the very same people that they helped bring into slavery. That's a fact. Now, when they see us as some people that they can attach themselves to and control and utilize and benefit from. So they're not wanting to deal with us. No, they look for us, find us, discover us, and promote us for control purposes. That's called a culture vulture. That's somebody who's picking your bones clean. Look, the scripture calls us dry bones in the valley, carcass. But what do you mean, dry bones? Those are bones that have been picked clean. Black people haven't just been eaten up. Our bones have been picked clean. That's a vulture. So people have always attached themselves to what we were good at and what we were allowed to do. So if we could box good, they became our manager. If we could sing good, they became our manager. If we could play good, they became our manager. So we had the talent, but they ran our money and exploited our talent by and large. And look, I'm not saying that were not for them, many of our people would never have been recorded. If it were not for some of their work, many of our people would never have been made known. And granted, but the exploitation and the manipulation of our ignorance is something that we cannot hide from or act like it's anti-Semitism when we bring it out. Now, they're so arrogant and proud, many of them, that they're of the mind, you can't say nothing about us. You can't correct us in nothing. You can't point out any wrong that we're doing. Well, I'm so sorry. But this is the day when all truth has to be made known. And we can't let you off the hook. The average white person won't argue with us about their role in slavery. The average white person won't debate with you as to whether or not they did this or that. You can say, well, in Islam, they enslaved black people. True. And guess what? We haven't accepted a slave-making Islam. We don't believe in a slave-making Islam. That's why God came to the black man and brought them a new Islam. Because Islam is just an Arabic term that says entire submission and obedience to the will of God. That didn't start 1,400 years ago with Prophet Muhammad of Arabia, peace be upon him. No, Islam was the nature of God. He codified it as a religion, but it's really the nature of God. And we had that all the way in the beginning. So don't act like we accepted an Arab slave-making religion. I'm so sorry. But the Islam is taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is diametrically opposed to that. But think about what black people were able to do with Islam in Africa. That's how you got Timbuktu. That's how you got Songhai and Mali Empire, Mansa Musa and the great North African civilization. So even though we had Islam and it was brought maybe with ulterior motives, we saw no good in it and gave it our own understanding and our own expression, like we did with Christianity. It's a slave-making religion, but the beauty of black people is we can take even that and make something out of it. That's what made Nat Turner a great Christian. He didn't look in the Bible just as a slave. He looked into the Bible as a preacher, but he saw liberation in the Bible. David Walker in his appeals saw liberation in the scripture. So no, Marcus Garvey started a church out of his movement, the African Orthodox Church, but he didn't see it as a slave-making proposition, but as a tool for liberation, because the Bible has a blueprint for liberation. And there's wise members of the Jewish community that study us, and they know we're the fulfillment. Let me tell you this as the last point. Every member of the Jewish community knows that the scripture says in the last book of what is called the Old Testament, it says, "Behold, before the great and dreadful day of the Lord," Malachi, "I will send you Elijah." And every member of the Jewish community is looking for the coming of Elijah. And guess what we're saying to them? The Elijah that you're looking for is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, how you deal with that question, because that's at the core of our issue and our fight and our issue with the Jewish community, is at the root theological, because they're claiming to be the chosen people of God. And in fact, that is something that belongs to the black man and woman of America because of our suffering and our destruction. But God has heard our moaning and our groaning on account of our taskmasters and has come to America, not Egypt, America. She is the modern Egypt. She's the modern Rome. She's the mystery Babylon. You understand? And our fight is that our enemy knows that it's our time to have a black planet, our time to rule. And they know that we're the heirs to the vineyard. And they know it's time for you to get your rightful inheritance. And their anger now is that you break the grip of shame and begin to then break away from their control and accept your own and be yourself. That's a fear, because they know that they've not done right by you. These people know banking. They know finance. They know struggle. They know how to get us out of this condition. If they gave us their expertise, do you know we could rise up? They know how to help us to get out of this condition, but they don't. Think about these organizations that tell us to forgive, turn the other cheek, let bygones be bygones. Jews don't do that. They hurt for their enemies. Go and check how they do these 90-year-old Nazis that were like accountants and prison guards and people at the front gate. And they moved to Cleveland somewhere, and they're 90-something years old. They go and get them, put them down, and then arrest them and put them in prison at age 90. Well, why don't you all forgive them and apply that you tell us to do? Now, they don't go and help us to search. Look at those pictures of black people who have been lynched in the South, and you see a black man swinging on a tree in the town square, and 100 white people standing around taking pictures, eating hot dogs and eating popcorn. How many of these people were accomplices to murder, man? And nobody has traced them down, found out who they were, brought them to justice. So these white people that lynched our fathers, they have lived out their lives in Alabama, Mississippi, grown old to see great-grandchildren going to football games, cheering on Ole Miss or Crimson Tide Alabama football. But in their youth, they were accomplices to murder. But nobody's ever said, well, this man in this picture is now 88 years old, living over in Tuscaloosa or Opelika, Alabama, or Montgomery, Alabama, and here's his address, and let's bring him to justice. No, we're to let that go. But they don't show us what they do, because if they find you, they hunt you down. They found Eichmann in Argentina. They find the ones that they want to go after, and then America used some of the Nazi scientists to develop eugenic programs in America. And this is the shame of the women's, some of the critics of the women's movement. Think about Planned Parenthood sponsoring. Man, are you serious? That was the mother of that movement, Margaret Sanger, was a racist who wanted to exterminate black people and sterilize black people. Oh, so we're to forget that? Imagine the Democratic Party pulling their funding. But all of it, Brother Miles, speaks to a fear of the black planet. Because what you see now is that as our people are seeing how these people can pull their money just as quick, pull their support, then guess what? Tamika, the hell with their money. Why don't you organize among your own, take your colleagues, and you can get independent support so that you now don't have to worry about nobody pulling their money. Take your damn funding. We'll fund it ourselves. That's what the hip-hop people, the youngsters are talking about, and we marry that to the movement, and now the hip-hop and the movement come together, and we ask Jay-Z and Beyonce, you all finance the next march. You finance, you help us. And before you know it, the enemy will have an unintended consequence because he will have lost all control. So it's a great day, and that's, to me, why the enemy is scrambling. This is his last gasp of control. And Farrakhan and the God and the Christ that backed Farrakhan intend thoroughly to break their grip for once and for all in the 400th year of our sojourn.
Thank you, Brother Minister. Real quick, I got a couple of more questions, and I don't know if Brother James does.
Well, I'll shorten my answers, so let's go through them.
Yes, real quick. You know, there appears to be, since we know that there's a young generation of artists and entertainers that are seeking to be independent and remain strong in their independence. There also seems, on the flip side, to be a new crop of leaders and entertainers that the enemy has his grip completely on and seem to be willing to do the bidding of their enemy and take positions against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, against the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because, you know, with this Surviving R. Kelly docuseries and other things that are out there seems to be championing these causes. We know that the enemy is behind it all ultimately, but there seems to be young black faces in the front that are championing these causes. Can you speak a little bit to that?
The key is, you said, we know the enemy is behind it. But once you say that, then everything that you look at or see, you know there's a hidden hand behind it all. So the enemy has, you know, in the 60s and 70s, they had handkerchief head sellouts. In every generation, you have the Judas factor. You understand? So in the 60s, whenever the Honorable Elijah stood up and spoke and worked, there was always a Roy Wilkins from the NAACP, or James Farmer, or even a Martin Luther King that rose up in opposition on behalf of the enemy. See? Okay, go back to the time of Marcus Garvey. The enemy encouraged disputes among W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. Then when the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey came to America looking for Booker T. Washington, because he was inspired by his book, Up from Slavery. Marcus Garvey, he was talking economics, independence, do for self, and it was the NAACP, started and controlled by the Jewish community. The president or the head of the NAACP was Mr. Spingarn, who was also a spy for the military. And he kept an iron grip on the NAACP, even though it was a quote-unquote black organization. The Urban League was started by them. And the head of that group in those days was Mr., I think, Rosenwald, I believe was his name. So they told the blacks, particularly W.E.B. Du Bois and others, to attack Garvey. And there was a strong disagreement between Du Bois and Garvey, because the enemy never wanted our people to accept economic independence as a strategy. They wanted us to focus on civil rights and public accommodations. Okay? Now, going into the 60s, the enemy produced factional disputes between us. And there's always people willing to be used by the enemy.
Man, right.
Always. Right. Always being offered more gold for their labor. You understand? Always looking for currying favor with the enemy. They did it during the time of Jesus. They were looking for people right in his inner circle, called disciples, to see if they could turn somebody with an offer of money and advancement. Now, fast forward. When the minister stood up and became prominent, remember, Jesse Jackson came under attack by the Jewish community leadership when he ran for president. Remember, these people were calling leaders anti-Semitic, including Nelson Mandela. Archbishop Tutu, Bishop Tutu, was called anti-Semitic, because if you speak against aspects of Israeli misbehavior, notice, you can't talk about Benjamin Netanyahu. You can't not meet with him. You better not protest. You better not say anything negative about Israel. How in the hell can a country get away with no critique while you got Palestinians in an right slave prison camp called Gaza?
Right.
So these quick points speak to this new generation, because the old guard, the Clarence Pages, the Henry Louis Gates, the Stanley Crotches of the world, these writers and apologists for the enemy, they have no effect on the work of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So they've been cultivating a new generation of people. You know, some of them are half black and half white. Some of them were going to college. And guess what? The enemy stopped the nation from going to colleges and universities to speak. They banned us. And then in place of that, they have Africana Studies Department, whatever the hell Africana Studies means. But then you had a watered down group of professors that didn't come from the community experience, you know, and they were promoting a new agenda that then equates the transgender, gay, lesbian agenda with the black struggle. And then you have other issues that begin to impact the watering down of our collective struggle, which has as its common denominator our blackness. Ain't nobody stopping us because of our orientation, because of our religion. We're not dying for that. We're dying because we're black in a white supremacist society. So when Oscar Grant got murdered, he didn't ask what was your religion. No, we stood with our brother and family.
Right.
Religion never came up. When we stood up for Mario Woods, we never said, well, wait a minute, what is his religion? No, it didn't matter. When we stand up for our people, religion, gender, we're going to disagree on that. We're not going to agree, and I frankly don't give a damn who you're sleeping with. It never came up. One of the founders of Black Lives Matter is a sister named Alicia Garza. That's my friend.
Right.
We work together.
Yes, we did.
In the community. And she's one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. I don't care nothing about nothing else other than let's struggle together for justice. And if you ask her, she will tell you. She never was disrespected by the Nation of Islam. We always work together. We're friendly. We work together on the cause, and we're passionate about points of concern affecting the community. So this idea that this now is a wage issue is the enemy using the thin edge of the wedge to produce division, to get us all convoluted, because they finance now the organizations, they finance the movement. We didn't even know the degree to which the women's movement was being financed until they started pulling their support. And you say, damn, Planned Parenthood? All these different groups financing? Oh, we know this is problematic. So again, brother, there's a generation that has been cultivated, like you said, to oppose, and not just oppose, throw up trial balloons, make provocative statements to see, float them to see if they gain traction. And these young people, you know, having, quote, street credibility through manufactured struggle, financed by the enemy, and then they feel bold enough to do the bidding of the enemy as so-called truth tellers. Well, if you are that kind of truth teller, tell the truth about Jewish misbehavior. There's more anti-black statements coming from them, and not just statements, anti-black actions. But if you can't tell it straight with them, then we reject your straight talk, because we then know you're speaking as a mouthpiece for the enemy.
Yes, sir. Brother Minister, one other question, actually two more real quick, but you mentioned Oscar Grant, and it's come out in the news that the BART board has agreed to move forward in naming or renaming, I guess, a named street, Oscar Grant Way. And it appears to be an effort, or there appears to be an effort to rewrite the history of the Justice for Oscar Grant movement. You touched on this, but that's a personal something personal that we could talk about, because you were so actively a part of the Justice for Oscar Grant movement, even truthfully speaking, at the very core of igniting that movement. And could you talk a little bit about that? Because although there's a victory here with the name of Oscar Grant Way of 33rd to 35th Street in Oakland, California, but that didn't just happen. and a lot of people trying to take credit or rewrite the history and say it's due to this, that, and the other. I'd like to go to the root of that, if you would, for a little bit, and just talk about the Nation of Islam's involvement in that fight for justice for Oscar Grant that began years ago.
You know, the Nation of Islam was the critical mass, if you will, for the Justice for Oscar Grant movement. And not just the Nation of Islam, but the Nation of Islam was part of a coalition. But we can't discount the role of the Nation of Islam, because it was a critical role and a foundational role. But let's go to the root, because if we don't tell our own story, somebody will tell his story and call it history. So it's important. There was a Latina girl, young woman, who was on television. And one morning, I turned on the news, and they were talking about this young man that was murdered. I didn't even know he was murdered. And the commentator, the newscaster, said, we have a live report from where this young man was killed. And they took it to the reporter, and the reporter said, well, strangely enough, 1 week after this young man was killed at Hart Station, no one from the community is out here protesting except one protester. And they flashed the camera to this one young Latina sister who was carrying a sign. And it said, Justice for Oscar Grant. Now, I don't know her name. I never met this young girl, this young woman. But when I saw her by herself, standing for this brother, and they showed the clip of him being murdered, it shook me. And it caused me to get up and say, this is something that we cannot let stand. There's no reason why this one little Latina sister should be out there by herself standing for justice for this young man. So I called Student Minister Keith in Oakland, and we agreed that we need to do something. And the next call I made, I said, brother, let's check in with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to get his guidance. And he authorized us to put the full weight of the Nation of Islam to do all we can to bring justice to the family and the community that was wounded. And that's the start of the movement. From there, we organized leaders and preachers in a phone conference, and we agreed to go meet at a church led by the late, great Bishop Gordon Humphreys. See, that's the origin. And I'll tell you one step further, audience. At that meeting of politicians and leaders and activists that we met with, I said to them, look, we cannot let this die. We've got to stand up for this young brother and what was done to him. And we've got to personalize this. I have to see it as personal. You have to see it as personal. In fact, Oscar was my son. Oscar was my brother. In fact, I am Oscar Grant. And that's where the slogan started. I am Trayvon Martin. I am Mike Brown. I am Sandra Bland. But the origin of that, and it's on record,
that's right,
was in that meeting when it was said, Allah blessed me to say it, I am Oscar Grant. And that became the mantra of the movement. I am, we are Oscar Grant. And that's going all over the world. So when we pushed this movement, we forced the district attorney, for the first time in Alameda, California history, a police officer was charged with murder. It was our movement that forced that. and that was from a DA who was anti-black. This was the same DA in Alameda County that prosecuted the Black Panther Party and put Huey Newton in jail. That's his history.
Right.
But we actually forced him, and the man was so shook after he charged this officer Messerly with murder, he actually resigned after 30 years. We put a black chief of police at Bart. We remade the board, and people in the activist community joined with us. Some of them broke away and did their own thing, and black youth went to the street. We organized and caused great changes in the way policing was done with our people. In fact, Mayor Ron Dellum was the mayor at the time, and our brother, we organized an approach with him and his chief so that when our young people were out in the street, we told him we don't want a heavy-handed approach, Mr. Mayor. We know there may be a few broken windows and a few expressions of outrage, but that's a small price given what this community has not just suffered with Oscar, but generational abuse. So it's better that we allow some civil disobedience rather than the heavy-handedness, because that will exacerbate anger in the community. And our brother mayor agreed and pulled back the police so our young people could protest without being arrested, because some of the white anarchists tried to derail the protest and take our young people as professional agitators and move them in a way where some of our young brothers would have gotten 3 strikes and other things. Lastly, at the and student Minister Keith from Oakland was designated by the family to be their official spokesman. He kept the organizing on the ground day to day. He attended all the hearings and all the proceedings in court. Right. So kudos to student Minister Keith on behalf of the Nation of Islam, who used his influence to keep the day-to-day fight, and then when we needed to come together, we came together like a mighty fist to stand. So I want to say to Brother Keith and all of the leaders, all the organizers, everybody played a part, but don't try to rewrite the history and cancel us out. That doesn't help the narrative. And we're not going to let the narrative be that we weren't there, and they made a movie out of this called Fruitvale Station. Little to no mention was made of the role of the Nation of Islam. I know the brother wanted to do good, but I'm sure the thought police and the filters in Hollywood say you can make the movie, but don't make any real mention of the Nation of Islam. Well, no problem. We'll tell our own narrative. So at the 7th anniversary of Oscar's murder at Hart, I said, and it's on tape, by the grace of Allah, that we should, as a tribute, force Bart and the city to name the Bart Station after Oscar Grant, the Oscar Grant Memorial Bart Station, and we should name the street leading up to this station Oscar Grant Way. Well, I said, and the mother and the family agreed. And they've been working together with community support, with former council member Desley Brooks and council member Kaplan and other leaders that have worked together in unity, and they finally passed the process to change the street to Oscar Grant Way. We just want to make sure that we're thanking everybody for their involvement. Don't cut the nation out. Because Minister Farrakhan, listen to this carefully, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was the only national leader that came to Oakland and spoke to the community at a town hall meeting in support of the Justice for Oscar Grant movement. He came at his own expense and spoke to the organizers in the community around Justice for Oscar Grant. So we can never thank Allah enough for all those who came together, but never discount the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who took the full weight of the nation behind this, and that little Latina sister who was unnamed, unknown, but God knows what she did, and we would be disrespectful of God if we didn't acknowledge our little sister for standing by herself and sparking the conscience of us to stand up as a result of her bold stand. Thank you.
Brother Minister, this is the last question. It was actually text to me, and the question is, why is it that the minister's enemies seem to know who he is, while the masses who know him do not seem to know his magnitude like his enemies?
Mainly because the enemies control the messaging. So they're the hidden persuaders. You know, go back to the scriptures. Jesus was doing good, performing miracles, taking the blind, the leper, the lame, those who suffered, and he was healing them. And he was preaching a liberation message that the Roman Empire thought was a threat. But the main people that opposed Jesus were members of the Jewish leadership. And so they would go behind Jesus and interpret the good of Jesus. Listen to this from the Bible, because it has great relevance today. I'm not just quoting Bible for no reason. It's a relevant book if you know how to understand it. Jesus healed a man that nobody gave a damn about, and the scripture calls him a man born blind. And the question his disciples asked Jesus, who sinned that this man was born blind? Did his mother sin? Did his father sin? Who sinned that this man is born blind? And listen to the revolutionary answer of Jesus. Farrakhan. Jesus. Listen to what he said. He said, neither his mother nor his father sinned. He's born blind that the work of God can be made manifest through him. Do you know how big that is? Because what that says, brothers and sisters, is no matter what our condition is, there's hope for redemption. Do you know that's how you got Malcolm X?
That's right.
The NAACP didn't want him. The Urban League didn't want him. Alpha Phi Alpha and the Sigmas and the Kappas didn't want him. The Masons didn't want him. You know who wanted him? Elijah. And he reached into prison and pulled our brother up, who was called in prison. His nickname was Satan. That's how ugly he was acting. But Elijah looked past his fault and saw his need, and inspired the goodness and the greatness and the God in Brother Malcolm, and rose him from ignominy to preeminence in the world. But what you didn't see was the hidden hand of the enemy trying to separate the student from his teacher. But that's the work of Elijah Muhammad. And that's the work of Farrakhan. It's the redeemed fallen humanity. But there's a group that doesn't want us redeemed. I was watching a documentary last night, and the documentary was about drugs in the black community, and they went all the way back into the 40s and 50s. Do you remember in The Godfather, when they came to The Godfather with a proposition, Marlon Brando, and said, look, we want to introduce drugs into the equation. And the old man said, no, I don't agree with that. Let's just stick with the vices, gambling, right, women, but leave that alone. Well, the new group of gangsters said this is where the money is. And so they all met at a round table and said, look, I want the drugs, but I don't want it to go anywhere but the black community, because they're animals anyway. They have no souls. Well, if that's the mind of those who had the dope in what is called the French Connection, then they started bringing heroin, horse, into the black community in droves. And before you know it, according to this documentary I watched, they said 20% of black men, according to this documentary, in the inner cities were strung out on heroin. 20%! And these people made money. Come to find out, the CIA was in it, bringing the drugs to the community, setting up networks of distribution. And then brothers started being protected and allowed to go and make contacts to cut the mafia out, and then go to Southeast Asia and go get the poppy, go get the heroin straight from the field and cut out the middleman. But the government was in it all along, facilitating, because it fit the narrative. Come, let us deal wisely with these people, to cut them out and destroy the male and spare the female. Fast forward, the Kerner Commission said, and you studied this, that look, after the riots in the 60s, you know, they said, look, if we don't change the root of who developed the ghetto, and the ghetto was developed by institutional racism, poor housing, lack of opportunity, and heavy-handed police brutality is what's producing these riots. And if we want to change the pathology of the black community, we're going to have to develop a national will and spend the resources necessary in order to turn this around. Because if we don't, by 1985, it will be impossible to mainstream black people into the fabric of America. Lyndon Johnson, the president, said, we will do it. But then put the money for the war on poverty, put that money towards Vietnam and the escalation of Vietnam. Martin Luther King stood up and said, I can't be silent on this. The Negro leaders rose up as lackeys for the enemy, rose up and attacked Martin Luther King, NAACP, and the rest of them. And you know, ostracized him. And once they were able to ostracize Dr. King, who was becoming bolder and bolder, particularly after he met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in his Chicago experience, where he said in Chicago he saw racism that he never saw in the South. So Martin Luther King became isolated, and they finally assassinated him, but he was speaking out on the war in Vietnam and was planning a poor people's march, demanding that the resources be spent in with poor people. And so now what you're dealing with is this kind of effort, because in Minister Farrakhan, if it's impossible by 1985 to mainstream black people, what happened in 85? What happened in 84? Jesse Jackson ran for president, and he was turning people's minds and hearts with hope and possibility. Who derailed his campaign? It was members of the Jewish community, the ADL and others, who opposed Reverend Jackson. Minister Farrakhan supported Reverend Jackson. In fact, Reverend Jackson would have been killed with all the hate that he was facing. Guess who protected our brother? It was Minister Louis Farrakhan that secured and protected Reverend Jackson and his family. So he owes his life to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's love and support. So he can't be silent. But in 1985, what happened to the black community? Crack cocaine was unleashed. Like heroin was unleashed in the 60s, crack was unleashed in the black community, and black people were set up to be distributors, and it became income sources for brothers and sisters that never had nothing. Now you could make money selling crack to our people. But we learned that the CIA was behind it. So why am I saying that? Because, brother, the enemy always knows who their threats are to their control because they study us intensely. And then look at what Jesus, after he healed the man born blind, who did nothing wrong, God just wanted to prove that he was God by working through him. Look at what the enemies came and said to the man born blind. They said, quote, who did this for you? And he said, well, it was Jesus. And then they said, well, he did it by the power of the devil. Well, wait a minute. Y'all didn't give a damn about him being blind. Now that he's blind, you're interested in him. And you now are ascribing the good of his sight to the work of the devil. And the man born blind said, well, I don't know about that, whether it was the work of the devil. All I know is I was blind, but now I see. So there's always an enemy going behind your good to muddy up your waters. Think about, Brother Miles, as I conclude, the brothers. There was drug markets, there was gang violence, there was killings and shootings and murders and rapes in the housing projects in the nation's capital. All over the country, there was this unbearable level of violence in the projects, in the housing projects. Guess who came to the rescue to stop the violence? It was the Nation of Islam and the fruit of Islam that went into these projects, cleaned them up, and guess who got upset? Members of the Jewish community. Now, you're upset because we're cleaning up the mess that you all helped create? Well, you're not trying to support that effort. You want to destroy that effort. So the thought of Minister Farrakhan has been misrepresented all along. But guess what? With the advent of the internet, social media, the forum that we're on now, you could never have this kind of conversation on the networks or on platforms that they control. But you can have this kind of conversation now independent. So what that has done, jacks out the box. Now you can formulate, ideas and thoughts and share information without going through their filter. And guess what? They're upset about that. So now they're trying to get control of social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, websites, and they call it, hate. So if you say something now that they don't like, they'll label it hate, and then get it pulled off the stream or off the platform. Because they're at their wits' end, because even though they want to make Minister Farrakhan ugly, they're so hateful that if Minister Farrakhan doesn't say anything, just sit at a funeral for our sister, memorial for our sister Arisa, he just sat there. And they were shook over him just sitting there. Think about that. Look at him sitting there. Look at him. He's smiling. Look at him sitting near President Clinton. Look at him. He's driving you nuts. You're losing your mind because you can't make the narrative stick. And that's why, even though our people, are somewhat ignorant, it's our actions as they spew their flood of hate and propaganda. The scripture says that the earth will swallow the flood, meaning the masses of the people who know Muslims, know our work. We've been doing our work since 1930. We've been around 89 years this year. We didn't just pop up. We're institutions in the black community and in communities of oppression. So for our good work, yes, the enemy is working, and yes, they'll persuade the masses to turn on a good man. So we have to now rise. That's why this program is so important. I want your listeners, take what we said tonight, share it with your friends, share it with your loved ones, share it with those that you are trying to enlighten. But if everybody on this podcast shares this message with 10 or 20 people that you know, guess what? Encourage them to share it, and then that will spread the message and have some kind of effect in turning the hearts of the children back to the Father, and the hearts of the Father, hopefully, back to the children, which is one of the works of Elijah that is to come. And we're telling the world that the Elijah you're looking for is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and his representative is that Messiah figure, messianic figure, that the enemy vowed to stop the rise of, but it's too late now. You didn't calculate Farrakhan rebuilding the nation, which is a miracle, but he's done it, and the nation of Islam is here and will never fall again by the grace of God. Thank you, brother, and Brother James and Sister Half Pint and the team of Hip Hop for Justice. I'm proud of you. I hope and pray that what I said tonight in this exhausting interview and opportunity to share on behalf of my illustrious leader, who I have pledged my life to, because of the goodness of what he represents for our people, we cannot sit back and watch the enemy prepare an atmosphere where our righteous leader can be assassinated or arrested without us standing up and standing for him as he stood for us. Thank you, beloved. If I've answered all your questions, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brother Minister.
May Allah bless you and keep you all. And let's do this again sooner rather than later.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, family.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Minister. And to everyone that stayed with us for 2 hours and 25 minutes, thank you so much for staying on the line. Thank you if you spread the message and you got with people and informed them that we were having this tonight. Thank you so much for that effort. And when this recording is archived, it will be posted immediately. And we encourage everybody to take the archive and spread the message as Student Minister Christopher asked us to do. With that being said, thank you once again. Thank you, Brother James, for everything that you do to keep the platform going. And to my sister Half Pint, thank you so much for all that you do to keep this platform going. We look forward, God willing, to coming back next week, same time, and keeping the conversation moving forward. Thank you so much, family. God bless.